people familiar with this public health model of prevention that says that whenever we do something to support people, our baseline intervention is going to work for 90% of the population. And the way what I try to do is generalize this to schools is many schools put a lot of effort into ensuring that their schools are safe and that they run well and that kids have a positive school attitude and they're well behaved. And so at the universal level, they do things like they have their signs posted about what the expectations are in the cafeteria. You have morning meeting where you're building community now, and there's a lot of research to show that when kids have an opportunity to get each other, to know their teacher and each other on an informal basis, it improves their behavior in the classroom. There are sometimes incentives where you have catch and being good things happening in your schools where the kids, for younger kids, their name gets announced over the PA. Billy was observed helping Mary on the playground. Good job, Billy. So most of that stuff's going to work for 80 to 90% of the population. But then we get some kids, for whatever reason, they're a little tougher birds. So those are the kids who might fall in the yellow. Teachers who are well versed in developing positive behavioral support plans, these are kids who might need a little of that to get them going, a contact with the mom and dad and every once in a while to kind of keep things on pace. And in theory, that's going to get 5 to 10% of those kids. But then, in spite of all those interventions, you're still going to have 1 to 5% of the population who are very noticeable. These are the kids who the custodian knows their name, right? And the lunch people, and they're quite visible, and they're often in the center of many controversies that happen around school. These are kids who who might be getting therapeutic interventions. They might be seeing an outside service. They might be involved in social services. The family might be getting support to help deal with these youngsters. These are the heavy hitters. So a corollary, where do you see this? You ready for this? How do you like that? Okay. A corollary can be made on the academic side of this as well. So everything we talked about in terms of research-based core curriculum, progress monitoring, all of those things, those are going to have a huge impact on 80 to 90% of your students. And that's what we're calling Tier 1, as we referred to earlier. That's the general ed classroom, and that's the responsibility of the general ed teacher. Then you're going to have some kids who might need some supplemental services, where in spite of what you've done, they need a double whammy or some small group work, and that might be received by somebody else. And ultimately, it gets them on track. And those would be 5 to 10% of our population. And then we have 1 to 5%, and this is where that number came from, that 3% that I gave you earlier, in the mid-range there. 1 to 5% who in spite of all our efforts, have significant language-based or learning disabilities or reading disabilities, and we're going to be in it for the long haul with these folks, is that we found out what we need to support them, but their growth trajectory is so slow that we know we're going to be supporting them all through elementary school and perhaps even into middle school. And that, or even further than that. And that represents the top 5, and in this model, that's tier 3. So as you go up, the intensity of the services tend to change. They become more intense, and the duration tends to change as well. Tier 2, the data tells you how long you're going to be involved in that, but because it's supplemental services, you're not going to be involved in a Tier 2 intervention the whole school year, right? Because that's telling us something else. That's the long haul. So that's the student who we may decide is a tier 3 kind of person. And down up here, it's not as important. Down south, this is hugely important because these are the people that the federal government give us money for, right here.